The Venezuelan government is cracking down on remittance payments with a new banking mandate, one that could put the country's Bitcoin users on an even tighter leash. In a letter addressed to all banking institutions, the government has ordered all domestic banks to disclose the IP addresses, financial details, transaction amounts and locations of all citizens who access their banking services from outside the country. Per the measure, Venezuelans are expected to notify their banking institution of travel instances prior to departing, explicitly indicating their destination place, and how long they'll be out of country. The letter reads, if a citizen fails to comply with the above stipulations, banks may enact a special condition that restricts the ability of the client to make online transactions, effectively locking them out of their bank accounts if they're caught accessing services outside of the county. The bank is then required to report the policyholder's name, identification of the resource asset, date and place of provenance, date of imposed restriction and the IP address from which access was attempted to the national entity of financial intelligence. Lack of compliance with the above stated, the letter concludes, will result in the imposing of sanctions in accordance with the terms outlined by the legislative decree. An attempt to monopolize money transfers. The measure, self-described as a means to preserve the interests of the users and of the general public, is the government's attempt to strong-arm the community of Venezuelans who migrate to neighboring countries, such as Argentina, to send money home. Their own country's economy ravaged by hyperinflation. These expats seek work abroad in hopes of earning a living wage to support themselves and their loved ones. It's these citizens funneling money back into the country that the government wants to police with its new order. A lot of people are sending money to their relatives in Venezuela and they want a cut of that. Venezuelan Eduardo Gomez, head of aid support at Purse.io, told Bitcoin Magazine. This strategy, he continued to explain, is much like the Cuban government's own monopoly over cross-border transaction clearing. If you look at what Cuba is doing, the biggest revenue source for Cuba is remittances. It's all the Cubans living in Florida, in Miami, sending money home to their families. If you want to send money to Cuba, you have to go through the government to sell dollars for Cuban pesos. Venezuelan officials are reaching for the same control in sanctioning state-approved trading houses, which, as Gomez suggests, are in the government's back pocket. Politicians are hoping to reroute all remittances through these institutions to take a cut of payments. The bank order is the means by which the government intends to coerce citizens to use these services, and their IP addresses are the leverage. As the order indicates, if a client is caught accessing online banking services abroad, or she fails to report the required information to her bank, then that client could lose banking privileges. Gomez told us that the government has already come down on citizens using middleman services who offer cheaper money transfer services in neighboring countries, citing his siblings' use of such services in Uruguay. This new measure will look to sweep up those they've missed, including users of well-known OTC Bitcoin exchange Local Bitcoins. With remittances in sight, Bitcoin users caught in crossfire. Bitcoin is a threat to the government because people are using local Bitcoins to trade money around, Gomez said. While Gomez admitted that there's less volume on Latin America's local Bitcoins hubs compared to international exchange volumes, he did say that volume is increasing as it has become a popular remittance option to circumvent government-sanctioned trading houses. Expats will even use the service as an alternative to foreign currency transfer intermediaries. Many Venezuelans living and working in Argentina, for example, will convert their Argentinian pesos into Bitcoin. Using local Bitcoins, they'll search for a Venezuelan trader who uses the same bank as them, something that can be tricky depending on rates. Bitcoin to Bolivar liquidity and transaction size. Once a user finds the right match, they'll give the buyer their bank account number, or, in some situations, that of a relative, and settle the transaction. Under the government's new requirements, Venezuelans who deposit directly into their own bank accounts could be in trouble, Gomez said, as they could have their banking services shuttered on account of illegal use, with similar consequences for those buyers transferring the funds. If the measure takes its desired effect, Gomez believes that it could have damaging ramifications on Bitcoin's use and local Bitcoins' presence among Venezuelans. What this means for Bitcoin in the short term is that it could take some liquidity from local Bitcoins, because I have heard some rumors that a lot of Latin American traders for local Bitcoins are Venezuelans living abroad. A lot of these guys left the country years ago. So what may happen is that a lot of those traders won't be able to log into their bank accounts. Theoretically, this is easy to overcome. Instead of transferring funds into your own account, for instance, you could have them sent to a relative. Instead, Gomez forecasts this as a likely outcome. One that, if it causes an uptick in local Bitcoins' popularity, could lead the government to shut down domestic access to the platform entirely. In the long term, the government may restrict local Bitcoins via something like DNS blocking or IP blocking to restrict access to local Bitcoins in Venezuela. If they see that a lot of people are using local Bitcoins to circumvent this IP restriction, then they may see it as a threat. Still, this action would be a long time coming if it's ever executed, Gomez predicts. For the same reason why local Bitcoins is the only cryptocurrency exchange still active in the country. Officials use it. A lot of people inside the government use local Bitcoins to sell their Bitcoins that they earn via mining, because all of the government officials mine, he said. Even as the Venezuelan police raid local mining operations, government officials themselves mine with immunity, having bootstrapped their own rigs since the market's 2017 bull run. Seeing as it's so popular among officials, Gomez thinks the government will leave the exchange alone. For now, at least. Bigger than Bitcoin in our talk, Gomez indicated that the government's banking order will no doubt create headaches for Venezuelan Bitcoin users. But by and large, the order is about effecting greater control over all aspects of the economy. Wrangling in Bitcoin users, specifically those sending money across borders, is just one degree of this control. Ultimately, the government wants a cut of the pie for remittances, Gomez said. Local Bitcoins is certainly cutting into the government's transaction processing profit, but it's not only used for money transfers. Gomez also told Bitcoin magazine that Venezuelans use the service to check the Bolivar's rate against the US dollar, which has become a de facto trading standard for many in-country services. Venezuelans used to reference Dollar Today, a popular service for transparent Bolivar dollar rates. But ever since rumors began to spread that the Venezuelan government covertly purchased the domain to control the rates, local Bitcoins is becoming the market reference for the dollar, Gomez said. Users will refer to the Bitcoin Bolivar rate against the Bitcoin dollar rate to arrive at a reliable Bolivar dollar rate. The government's economic war, as Gomez indicated, is total. One that looks to tighten the noose around any service or tender that works around officially sanctioned services. Given local Bitcoins is proving to be a multifaceted tool for those Venezuelans who use it, it's reasonable to assume that, if its popularity continues to surge, the government may take action. If it does, this could completely throttle the last access points Venezuelans have to cryptocurrency platforms and services. Gomez said that even though local Bitcoins is the only operable exchange left in the country, there's still a lack of liquidity. In the event of this closing, Venezuelans will have yet another hurdle to jump when attempting to use crypto. This would neutralize one of the only economic safe havens citizens have left as the bolivar continues to hemorrhage value. Venezuelan salaries are so low that there's not even a way for people to buy crypto. To put things into perspective, the average salary in Venezuela for 1 month of work is $1. Can you imagine that? Working a full month and only earning $1 at the end of it, Gomez concluded in our talk. Hashtag banking, hashtag remittances, hashtag Venezuela, hashtag local bitcoins, hashtag Bitcoin, hashtag Petro.